Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Fishel, and welcome to bonus weather video number 1 for this week. And we're going to be talking about severe weather outlooks, everything you ever wanted to know, and then some. All right? So let's go to the primary thing that most people think of when they think about severe weather occurrences or threats of occurrences, and that is the difference between a watch and a warning. A watch means nothing has happened yet, but it is a great opportunity for you to formulate a plan in case something does happen. You get the plan together, you're all set. If nothing happens, great. If it does, you already know what to do. And so you don't have to go into a state of panic and say, oh my gosh, I forgot what no, you've already got all that taken care of, okay? So a great time to do that. A watch is issued when conditions are favorable for the development of severe thunderstorms and or tornadoes in your area, but nothing has occurred yet. A warning means it's happening, to take cover immediately. And a warning is issued when a trained spotter, and the National Weather Service actually has trained or spotter training classes which you can attend if you so desire or have the interest. But if a trained spotter is observing 1-inch diameter hail or winds greater than 58 miles per hour, or radar is detecting such conditions. Now, one of the relatively newer tools that has come along with radar in the last couple of decades is something called the correlation coefficient. And it's a fancy term for taking a look at the uniformity of the size of whatever objects the radar is detecting. So usually when it's raining or snowing, that most of the raindrops and snowflakes are a fairly uniform size. They may vary a little, but not much. But if you have a tornado on the ground and it is picking up objects like sofas and chairs and sewing machines and whatever, then all of these objects are going to vary greatly in size. So here's an example of a tornado that was detected by radar, and down in here is the velocity pattern. So if you remember about the idea with Doppler radar is that if you have a whole bunch of raindrops moving away from you, right next to raindrops that are moving toward you, then that tells you that you have this. So down in here, you have raindrops moving away from the radar, toward the radar, and so the circulation's right in here. But coinciding with that is the correlation coefficient up in here. Notice how most of the colors around it are red, a couple of yellows and blues, but mostly red. And then all of a sudden, bang, and here you got this solid blue area, and that's telling you that the objects that the radar is detecting vary greatly in size, okay? So this is what we call a debris ball, where the tornado is on the ground and all sorts of havoc is going on with objects being lifted and thrown into the atmosphere. And so this is one of the tools that the radar uses to detect a tornado. I'm still not comfortable with using this to use the word confirmed. To me, confirmed is a human being actually observing it, okay? You can say that there's a high likelihood that there's a tornado on the ground with something like this, okay? But I still don't feel comfortable with using the word confirmed. That's just my personal opinion. All right, so how is severe weather defined? The National Weather Service defines a severe thunderstorm as a storm that produces one or more of the following: a tornado, damaging winds or speeds of 58 miles per hour or higher. And you might wonder how they came up with 58. Well, that's the conversion to miles per hour from 50 knots, okay? And hail 1 inch in diameter or larger. And then the National Weather Service goes on to define a significant severe thunderstorm, as if to imply that regular severe thunderstorms are not significant, but even more significant is a storm that produces one or more of these. A tornado that produces EF2 damage or greater. We'll talk more about the EF scale in a second. Wind speeds of 75 miles per hour or higher. And hail 2 inches in diameter or larger. Okay, that's obviously a big-time severe thunderstorm. All right, so over-warning is inevitable. Okay, now warnings used to be county-based. Okay, which means that if there was radar was picking up anything anywhere in a county, that the whole county would be warned for it. And as a famous goat once said, that's bad, okay, because way more people are being let know about this than are actually being threatened by this particular storm. Then the warnings went to being storm-based, which was a whole lot better because it meant that the warnings were going to be based on a particular storm, and only the people in the path of that storm would be warned, okay? So that was obviously a huge improvement. But even with that, usually a relatively small percentage of that warning area is going to be affected. We wish we were good enough to be able to say, yep, this house on Main Street's going to get it, this house isn't, the next one is. Not even close to being there, okay? So the number of people affected will always be less than the number of people that are actually in the warning area, unless you have a mile-wide tornado which is just barreling along and wiping out everything in its path. So this is my recommendation, and I'll really drive this home at the end of the video. Don't allow a low probability event to make you forget about the potential high impact if that event occurs. Always take warnings seriously, okay? Now, a famous tornado researcher by the name of Ted Fujita, many years ago, came up with what he called an F scale, which was based on the first letter of his last name, and it related damage to wind speeds. But later, he realized that there was a flaw in the scale in the sense that he wasn't taking into account the quality of construction of the various things like buildings that were being damaged. And so he revised that scale, and he called it the Enhanced Fujita Scale, or EF, okay? So now, a 3-second wind gust of 65 to 85 miles per hour is an EF0. 86 to 110 is EF1. Now, you remember before the significant severe was EF2 or higher? So the wind speeds have to be 111 to 135 miles per hour, or estimated to be so, for it to qualify as an EF2. And then you go all the way up here to EF5, which is over 200, anything over 200. Now, the original estimate was 262 to 317. But again, he figured out that he had to take into account the quality of the construction of whatever the object was that was being damaged. And so this came down to simply being over 200. Now, when you watch television, and I'm going to take myself out of the picture here so that you can see all of these all of these letters. There we go. Sometimes it's tough to get the cursor to where I want it to be. There we go. All right. So you probably heard this many mornings when you get up, that we're in a marginal risk, we're in a slight risk, a moderate risk, whatever. Well, these are the actual definitions for that. Isolated severe thunderstorms for marginal, scattered for slight, numerous for enhanced, widespread for moderate, and then for high, they're not just likely, they're expected. The details for marginal, limited in duration and coverage or intensity, and then you move all the way down to high, where long-lived, very widespread, and particularly intense storms are expected. And high risks don't occur very often, but you may remember April 16th of 2011 in North Carolina. That was a high-risk day. Okay, so this I don't want you to worry about. Do not stress about all of the different definitions here and how they vary with regard to tornado, wind, and hail. I just thought you might be curious. For a day 1 probability, and actually day 2 as well, if you hear that you're in a marginal risk, that means there's a 2% chance of severe weather occurring within 25 miles of where you live, okay? And then when you get to 5%, then wind and hail come into play. Now, when you see 10%, that's a straight probability. 10% significant severe means that there's a 10% chance of severe weather within your 25 miles of where you live, and that what severe weather occurs has a chance to be significant. And remember, significant was 2-inch diameter hail, 75-mile-an-hour winds, or an EF2 tornado or higher, okay? You go all the way to the bottom of the chart, and you see 60% significant severe, which means a 60% chance of either tornadoes, wind, or hail within 25 miles of where you live, and that either the tornadoes are likely to be EF2s or higher, the winds are likely to be 75 or higher, or the hail is likely to be 2 inches or higher, okay? Now, 60% is just a little better than flipping a coin. And this is within 25 miles of where you live, okay? Which means that the chance of it occurring over your house or any particular point is infinitely less than that. If it's 60% within 25 miles, it's probably well less than 1% over your house. But, and I put the but in red for a reason, if you never take action in a low probability, high impact event, you will survive well over 90% of the time. In fact, probably 98, 99% of the time. Are you willing to play Russian roulette with that one time that it does happen? The one time the tornado comes over your house. If you go to your basement for 20 minutes and nothing happens, what have you lost? And I actually did the calculations here, my friends, and I took into account that every 4 years is a leap year. I wanted to be exact. If you live to be 80 years old, you will have lost, by going to your basement for 20 minutes, 0.00048% of your life. My advice, don't risk it. If you go to your basement several times in your life and never comes over your house, the tornado never comes over your house, don't be mad, be thankful. Okay? And if by chance it does one of those times come over your house, you have infinitely increased your chances of surviving that particular storm. Okay? To me, it's a win-win all the way across the board. All right, let me see if I can't get myself back in the picture here. And there we go. All right, that is bonus weather video number 1 for this week. Number 2 will be coming up on Friday, and the next daily weather update will be coming up later this afternoon. So we hope you'll join us for that. In the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, and we will talk to you later this afternoon. Take care.